Every full moon, someone calls emergency dispatch and says nothing at all. Tonight, he finally spoke and asked me not to save him. I've taken thousands of calls in this job. People screaming, people crying, people too frightened to get a full sentence out before the line goes dead. I thought I'd heard every version of fear a human voice could carry. I hadn't heard this one yet. "Please don't send anyone," he said. Calm, almost gentle, like he was doing me a kindness. "Sir, I need you to tell me where you are." A long breath on the other end. Ragged, like it hurt to take. "Because when they find me," he said, "I'll already be dead." That's not a sentence I was trained for. There's no script for a man who sounds more afraid of being saved than of dying. I opened my mouth to ask him to stay on the line, to tell me his name, anything, and that's when I heard it behind his voice. Low, guttural, not human, a growl. The call cut dead. I sat there with the dial tone humming in my ear, staring at a blinking cursor on a call log I didn't know how to file, and told myself it was an animal. A dog. Static. Anything with a simpler explanation than the one my gut was already reaching for. I didn't know, sitting there in that chair at 2 in the morning, that I'd just had the first conversation of my life with someone who'd been dead, officially, for 3 years. I didn't know his voice would follow me into every quiet room after that. I definitely didn't know I'd spend the next 4 months trying to find him, not because it was my job, because somewhere in that phone call, buried under the fear and the growl and the dial tone, I'd heard something else. I'd heard someone who didn't want to be found by anyone. Except, maybe by me. I didn't sleep after that call. Not really. I finished my shift on autopilot, filed the log the way I was supposed to, and told myself, for the 3rd or 4th time that night, that it had probably been an animal. A dog, chained up somewhere, growling at the sound of a stranger's voice. That's the story I kept handing myself, over and over, like a coin I was trying to wear smooth. It didn't work. It never quite works, when some part of you already knows better. I walked home as the sky was turning that flat gray it goes right before sunrise, and I kept hearing it. Not the growl, the other part. "Please don't send anyone. Because when they find me, I'll already be dead." People don't say things like that unless they mean them. And people don't mean things like that unless they've already made peace with something the rest of us would never accept. If you've ever had a stranger's voice get stuck in your head like that, a call, a message, something you couldn't explain and couldn't shake, then you already understand exactly where my head was that morning. That's the kind of story this is. So if you want to find out who he was and why I couldn't let it go, stay with me. Subscribe to Nightfall BL Stories and turn your notifications on, because this is only where it starts. I made it home, made coffee I didn't drink, and turned on the news out of habit more than anything. Background noise for an apartment that felt too quiet after a shift like that. I almost missed it. A local segment, tucked between a traffic update and the weather. A photograph of a man's face filled the screen behind the anchor, and something in my chest went very still. I knew that voice. I was sure of it, the way you're sure of very few things at 6 in the morning on no sleep. But I knew it, the same low, rough, careful voice from the line just hours before. The cheering across the bottom of the screen read, "Missing person, last seen 3 years ago." 3 years. I sat there on the edge of my couch with my cold coffee going colder, staring at a face that had, by every official record, not existed in this city for 3 years, and I had just spent 14 minutes on the phone with him 2 hours ago. I told myself I'd look it up once. Just once, to satisfy the part of my brain that wouldn't let it go, and then I'd close the tab and go to sleep like a normal person who hadn't just spent his morning coffee getting cold in his hand. That was 4 hours and 11 browser tabs ago. His name was Magnus. Magnus Rourke. 31 years old. Though the articles all still spoke of him like he was frozen at 28, the age he'd been the night he disappeared. A firefighter. Decorated, apparently. There was a grainy photo of him in uniform, half smiling at something off camera, looking like a man who had absolutely no idea what was coming for him. 3 years ago, there'd been an incident. The articles were frustratingly vague about it. An industrial fire, a rescue that had gone wrong, conflicting witness accounts. Some said an explosion. Some said he'd gone back in for someone and never come out. One local piece, buried on page 4 of an archive I had to dig for, used the word unexplained twice in one paragraph, which is a strange thing for a news article to admit. No body was ever found. The department listed him as presumed dead within the year. His family, according to one short and heartbreaking follow-up piece, had stopped giving interviews a long time ago. Presumed dead. Not dead. Presumed. I sat back from my laptop somewhere around sunrise, the apartment fully bright now, and looked at that photo of him in his uniform, and thought about a voice on a phone line telling me, calm as anything, that he'd already be dead by the time anyone found him. He wasn't talking about being murdered. He was talking about something that happened to him. Something he expected. Something on a schedule. I thought about the growl again. I thought about the pattern. Always the same night of the month. Always around the same hour. Going back, according to our call logs, almost 3 years. Almost exactly as long as Magnus Rourke had been missing. I didn't sleep that day. I told myself I would. And instead I sat at my kitchen table with a legal pad and a coffee I actually drank this time. And I started writing down everything that didn't add up. By the time my alarm went off for my next shift, I had a working theory I couldn't say out loud to anyone without sounding unwell. And I had a decision to make. Whether to keep pretending this was a coincidence worth filing and forgetting, or go find out exactly what happened to the man the whole city had already stopped looking for. I picked up my keys. I already knew which one I was going to choose. If you're as curious as I was that morning, if you want to know what really happened to a man the world had already given up on, stay close. Subscribe to Nightfall BL Stories and turn on your notifications, because episode 2 is coming soon, and I promise you, you don't want to miss it.